The younger sister possesses the uncanny ability to compel others to hear her innermost thoughts. In a previous life, under the influence of her mental manipulations, I found myself confined to a psychiatric institution by my own family. Upon reopening my eyes, I realized I had returned to the day she first visited our home. While she outwardly exudes an air of innocence, her inner monologue betrays a darker intent. Is this not the very villain from the stories who precipitated the company's downfall? Drove our father to despair, and nearly caused my brother's demise? With a cold smirk, I turned away and dialed the National Security Bureau to report. I wish to file a complaint. Our family harbors a traveler from another realm. 01. After being confined in a psychiatric institution for a decade, I finally succumbed to death, an untimely demise wrought by despair. Upon regaining consciousness, I found myself amidst the engagement celebration of my brother and his fiancée, precisely one day before young Lily's arrival at my home. Tomorrow, my father would bring home the orphan child of a comrade, thereby becoming the third child of our family, my sister. In my previous life, following her arrival, the demeanor of my father, brother, and everyone around me took a dramatic turn for the worse. Some even regarded me with the animosity of lifelong enemies. Yet, she effortlessly garnered the affection of all. Jealousy consumed me, driving me to oppose Jiang Lily at all costs, but no matter the intricacies of my schemes, they were invariably unraveled with disconcerting ease. On the eve of the college entrance examination, on my 18th birthday, I struck Jiang Lily, only for my brother to produce a diagnosis document that led to my re-imprisonment in the asylum. Until my death, I never saw any of them again. 02. On the night of the engagement party, before we even returned home, my father received a call and hurried away. The next afternoon, I awoke at the same time as in my previous life, only to encounter my father entering the door with Jiang Lily in tow. This detail mirrored my past experience. However, in that previous life, Uniform had left for work early that day and returned home very late. Today, my brother was called back under the pretense of my illness, accompanied by his fiancée. 03. Yufeng, you're home? My father pulled Jiang Lily forward, presenting her to everyone. This is Jiang Lily, the daughter of my comrade, temporarily residing with us. In my past life, I paid little attention to the reactions surrounding Jiang Lily's entrance, mistakenly believing she was merely here for a short stay, and I hastily greeted her before rushing off to enjoy myself. Now, upon closer inspection, I noticed that a child who had just lost her parents bore no semblance of sorrow, instead scrutinizing me with keen interest. Was she truly the child of Uncle Jiang? In the next moment, a sweet voice pierced the air. Wow, is this the infamous antagonist from the original work who caused the company's downfall, drove the father to suicide, and nearly harmed the brother? 04. Thus, it became clear. No one at the scene spoke. My father and brother simultaneously wore expressions of shock, their gazes fixed upon Jiang Lily, before they unconsciously turned to me. I suppressed my own astonishment. In my previous life, I had never heard her inner thoughts. I merely sensed that after her appearance, my father and brother began to distance themselves from me, and all relatives and friends started to loathe me. The truth was so absurd. Such an implausible situation, and not a single one of them chose to report it, instead rendering a verdict of death upon me based solely on her inner voice. It was akin to a forced intellectual regression. However, Jiang Lily likely remained unaware that in this lifetime, I was not the only one who could hear her thoughts. 05. Oh, she looks so fierce. Truly the primary antagonist from the original work. I can't possibly survive beyond 2 episodes, can I? The looks my brother and father cast upon me grew increasingly perplexed. In the next instant, I positioned myself before Jiang Lily, blocking her path. Clarify this. Is she the daughter of your comrade or your illegitimate child? My father shot me a glare. What nonsense are you spouting? She is indeed your Uncle Zhang's daughter. He even held you as a child. If they wished to label me as the villain, I would fully embody that role and intentionally stir trouble. So, how long will she be residing in her home? A day? 2 days? I see she still carries her luggage. It couldn't possibly be for an extended stay, could it? My father's expression darkened considerably as he gently patted Jiang Lily's shoulder. Shaoli, why don't you go inside? I'll explain things to your sister. I obstructed Jiang Lily's way. Wait, no entry until there's clarity. Jiang Lily's thoughts echoed once more. Oh no. How does it feel like the antagonist is even more ruthless than in the original? Am I about to lose my life? The gaze of my father and brother fell upon me, and Shi Jiayu, witnessing the situation, gathered her courage to persuade me to step aside. 06. In my previous life. My relationship with her was far from amicable. Shortly after their engagement, my brother caught her in affectionate embraces with another man, leading him to insist on breaking the engagement, regardless of her explanations. Yet, she was almost the sole person who had offered me solace and tended to my wounds during my darkest hours. Thus, on the day of the engagement party in this life, I proactively sought her contact information, which explained why she returned with my brother upon learning of my illness. I deliberately called her sister. I will absolutely not allow dubious individuals into my home. Who knows what her intentions are? The next moment, Jiang Lily's sarcastic remark broke through. Wow, is this the fiancé who cuckolded the male lead and almost conspired with her lover to usurp his wealth? I froze momentarily, casting a sidelong glance at my brother, who, as if struck by a sudden revelation, immediately directed a suspicious gaze towards his fiancée. So this was the truth behind their broken engagement? In that instant, my brother had already sown the seeds of doubt in his heart, ensuring that no amount of explanation from Shi Jiayu would suffice to convince him. Was Jiang Lily's inner voice truly so beguiling? 07. My father glanced at my brother, and then at Shi Jiayu, his anger redirected, his tone considerably calmer. Listen, Nan. Your Uncle Jiang and Aunt Jiang have encountered an unfortunate incident. From now on, Jiang Lily will be living with us. Your behavior is quite impolite. I replied, what you say suggests she is the daughter of a comrade. Those unaware might mistake her for your illegitimate child. Her parents are gone. Has she lost all her relatives and friends? Why must she reside with us? My father, concerned that my words might hurt Jiang Lily, quickly shot a nervous glance in her direction. Jiang Lily, upon being looked at by my father, immediately adopted a demeanor that seemed to suppress her tears. My father, now visibly irate, pointed towards the house. Yunting Nan, you will go inside right now. Your behavior is intolerable. I collapsed onto the floor in tears. After a decade in the psychiatric hospital, I had witnessed such theatrical antics far too often. You shout at me? If my mother were here, she would never allow you to raise your voice at me. What kind of sorcery have you invoked to shout at me for the sake of a stranger? If she were a deity, she would surely have protected her parents first. What business is it of yours? I muttered, my words laden with insinuation. You have changed. She is certainly not Uncle Zhang's daughter. I want my mother, I do not want you. 08. Their minds, slightly restored by my cryptic remarks, began to cast doubt upon Jiang Lily. However, upon witnessing my dramatics, my brother could no longer contain himself and slapped my head. Yunting Nan, you are 16. Not 6. What is this nonsense? I too wondered what madness had overtaken me. Had they not been bewitched by her inner voice, I would not have resorted to such extremes. Despite my grievances, I relented somewhat, though I continued to feign anger. In any case, I dislike her. She is clearly the type to speak ill of others behind their backs, and she will undoubtedly report my every move to you. Upon hearing my words, my father and brother instinctively turned their gaze toward Jiang Lily, their suspicions deepening. Sensing the moment was ripe, I refrained from prolonging the act and feigned a sulk. Retreating to my room, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of my brother still tightly holding Shi Jiayu's hand. For the time being, I felt a slight sense of relief. Perhaps in this life, their intellect could still be salvaged. 09. Ultimately, Jiang Lily indeed remained in our household, and my father consoled her for quite some time. After all, she was the one capable of casting me into the abyss with but a single thought. Her position was not easily shaken. The following morning, as I descended the stairs, I found several individuals already seated at the dining table, with a beautifully crafted cream cake placed at my spot. Just as I approached the table, Jiang Lily cautiously said, Sister Tingnan, I made this little cake. I hope you like it. Meanwhile, a familiar voice echoed in my ears. I hope the villain devours my little cake and spares me, allowing me to survive until the grand finale. All I wish is to study diligently. I have no desire to entangle myself in your corporate strife. Unfazed, I slid into my seat. Excellent. The mischief begins early in the morning. Your inner thoughts are more accurate than big data analytics, each utterance striking precisely at their sentiments. As anticipated, my father and brother's expressions darkened slightly. Your sister woke up early to make you a cake. Who are you sulking at? My father's tone was far from amiable. In my previous life, I had faced a similar reproach, merely suffering from morning irritability and the inability to indulge in cake, and thus failed to muster a smile in response, earning my father's admonition. It was from this trivial incident that my disdain for the female lead began to fester, and I commenced to oppose her at every turn. After being chastised in my past life, my temper flared, and rather than explain, I sulkily shattered my dishes and departed from the dining table alone. Now, with a decisive motion, I flipped the cake onto the table. Who is her sister? My father regarded me with a cold stare. Yun Ting An, apologize. I met his gaze, unable to suppress my sarcasm. Father, my mother informed me that during my childhood, she was the sole caregiver, and you scarcely held me. Thus, you remain ignorant of my lactose intolerance and my inability to consume dairy products, correct? I was uncertain whether Jiang Lily had intentionally crafted this cake or had unwittingly struck a nerve. After all, her inner musings revealed that we seemed to inhabit the same narrative, and she was aware of the plot in its entirety. Since you label me the antagonist, how could we possibly suffer such indignities? My father fell silent after my retort, and I swiftly redirected my ire towards Jiang Lily. Are you our family S-maid? Don't we have a housekeeper? Is it necessary for you to rise early to bake a cake? Jiang Lily's face turned pale, tears welling in her eyes. She was exceedingly beautiful, and her tear-streaked visage was utterly heart-wrenching. Any man would surely be moved. I'm sorry, I thought you might not like me. So I made the cake. She attempted to cast me in a negative light while internally lamenting, oh no, how have I angered her again? Truly, the primary antagonist is so capricious. If she was aware I was the villain, why did she come rushing to my home? I mocked, what? Does Uncle Jiang mistreat you? The Jiang family is quite affluent. Why do you appear so petty? Are you truly Uncle Zhang's daughter? Jiang Lily appeared somewhat guilty at my words, instinctively placing her hands beneath the table, casting a pleading glance towards my brother, Yun Yufeng. I genuinely didn't know you couldn't eat cake. I just enjoy making desserts. Woo-woo, brother, save me. You are the male lead of the original story. Only you can balance her out. Yun Yufeng, upon being looked at by the female lead with such desperation, immediately felt compelled to act as her savior. Enough, Yun Ting An. Why are you throwing a tantrum this early? Xiaoli didn't mean any harm. If you can't eat it, just don't. Is it necessary to hurl accusations at the world as if everyone has wronged you? I turned to face Yun Yufeng, and once he finished reprimanding me, I spoke. So you are also punishing me on her behalf? Yun Yufeng replied, I am merely stating the facts. I smiled faintly, ceasing my argument, and rose to exit the living room. Jiang Lily transferred to my school and ended up in my class. I was unsure how my father orchestrated this, but the very next day, she accompanied me to school. Just as in my previous life. However, unlike before, I could not leave her alone with my father and brother. So I took the initiative to suggest we go to school together. Jiang Lily seemed startled by my sudden concern, quickly glancing at my father. Uncle, no. She's the villain. She will surely harm me. Woo-woo, I don't want to die. Whether it was my unintentional appeal to my father's conscience or his recollection of my mother. This time he did not entirely side with the female lead, but instead warned me not to bully my sister and permitted me to take Jiang Lily along. In my past life, he had completely changed his attitude towards me after the female lead's arrival, as if I were not his child at all. It appeared that, thus far, he remained unaffected by her inner musings. I felt a sense of relief. There was still room for redemption. Jiang Lily followed me to school cautiously, remaining quiet the entire way, not a single thought escaping her lips. Truly, her precision was remarkable. Upon entering the classroom, we encountered our class's top student, Zhang Yan. I was a mediocre student, with a wide range of interests, yet I could never muster any enthusiasm for studying. My father, concerned with appearances, had placed me in the best class at school. Zhang Yan not only consistently held the first position in our grade, but was also the school heartthrob and the class monitor. Upon seeing me enter the classroom, he immediately asked for my homework. What homework? Just as I was about to give him a nonchalant reply as I had before, the female lead commented, Zhang Yan? Isn't he the boy Yunting and liked in the original story, who, after rejecting her, was forced by her to submit? Both Zhang Yan and I were taken aback. Heaven knows, in my previous life, I had hardly interacted with him. Not only did I not harbor feelings for him, but I also found him somewhat irritating. always wearing that expression as if everyone owed him millions. Now that I reflected, he seemed capable of hearing Jiang Lily's thoughts. So it was no wonder he would not be pleased to see me. Jiang Lily, feeling the need to elaborate further, continued her inner monologue. Yunting and is still gazing at him. This is bad. Has she already taken a liking to him? How can I remind Zhang Yan to be cautious? My fists clenched tightly. I desperately wanted to punch her. So now she knows to call me Yunting Nan? At home. She constantly refers to me as the villain, yet at this moment, if she still insists on labeling me as such without using my name, I wouldn't feel so mortified. I silently stepped back a couple of paces, taking in their expressions. While I was not exactly a good person, I certainly wouldn't stoop so low as to force him into anything. At worst, I would merely take the initiative myself. What nonsensical original story, lacking any logic. I forgot to do it. I casually snatched 2 assignments from his hands. Give me 10 minutes. I'll copy it and return it to you. Under the scrutiny of 2 inquisitive gazes, I walked towards the spot that lingered in my memory. Jiang Lily's presence quickly garnered the admiration of nearly every boy in the class, except for Zhang Yan. In my past life, I remembered Zhang Yan being quite kind to Jiang Lily, seemingly harboring romantic feelings. However, in this life, perhaps due to my persistent entanglement, he seemed eager to avoid us whenever we were together. This was hardly my fault. My grades were abysmal while he was the brightest in the class. Even if he knew I was unwelcome, I still had to muster the courage to seek his help. Wasn't Jiang Lily always broadcasting her desire to focus solely on her studies? How could I allow myself to be overshadowed by her? Whenever I saw her approaching Zhang Yan for help, I would immediately rush over, pushing her aside to ask my questions instead. Each time, she would feign a pitiful demeanor, refusing to compete with me, while behind my back, she would ridicule me. If I were Zhang Yan, I would likely find both of us insufferable. Thus, I no longer behaved as I had in my previous life, engaging in daily battles against the female lead or deliberately sulking at home to draw their attention. Instead, I dedicated myself to studying earnestly, occasionally exchanging barbs with her. However, I approached openly, while she covertly insinuated my shortcomings, repeatedly alluding to how brutal I was in the original work, while presenting herself to everyone else as a victimized flower. My father observed our verbal sparring without the bias he had previously shown. My brother frequently played the peacemaker, though he predominantly admonished me. It seemed as if Zhang Yan was swayed by my earnest dedication to my studies, as she no longer exhibited the same aversion towards me as she had at the outset, and her affection for Jiang Li was entirely undetectable. Just when I believed the narrative was gradually straying from its course, and that one day they would all revert to their former selves, reality delivered a harsh slap to my face. On that particular evening, my father returned home unusually early. In my previous life, I had not been home that day, but I distinctly remembered that it was shortly after this moment that my father's demeanor towards me plummeted to an all-time low, reaching a point where he seemed to detest my very presence. I recalled this day so vividly because an extraordinary event transpired abroad. 2 nations unexpectedly declared war, causing social media platforms to nearly crash under the weight of the ensuing discussions. At the very instant that the news exploded across social media, my father sprang to his feet, his eyes sparkling with an ecstatic fervor akin to that of a fervent sports fan witnessing their idol score a goal. A foreboding feeling crept over me. Indeed, the next moment, Jiang Li entered the room carrying a book, and as she made her way to the upstairs bedroom, she turned to glance at the news on television. Oh dear, I almost forgot. Today A country and B country are at war. If I had stockpiled gold earlier, I would be making a fortune right now. Also, the person who approached Uncle for an investment a few days ago. His company is bound to go public and gain widespread recognition. This is the perfect time to invest. I stared in shock at my father, observing that the fervent excitement in his eyes had gradually dimmed, replaced by a burning gaze fixed on Jiang Li. "Xiao Li, come here." My father beckoned her amiably. "What is it, Uncle? Do you have any plans for tomorrow? Would you accompany me to the company? But I have school tomorrow. I'll arrange for you to take half a day off. Come with me to the company first. You're not a child anymore. It's time to gain some experience." My father hinted, "Rest assured, your father has entrusted you to me. From now on, you shall be the daughter of Yun Baogua, and you will have a share in all that belongs to the Yun family." I was incredulous. "Dad, what are you saying?" My father turned to face me, His eyes filled with a coldness and disdain I knew all too well from my previous life. Yun-Ting-An, why are you running around instead of doing your homework? Go back to your room. I felt as if I had fallen into an icy abyss. In that moment, I realized that it was not Jiang Li's inner voice that controlled him. Rather, he had chosen Jiang Li over me. My jealousy and resentment led me to believe that the heroine had stolen everything from me, which was why I targeted Jiang Li. But why did my father cherish her and harbor animosity towards me, his own daughter? The answer was glaringly obvious. It all boiled down to profit. An outsider who could bring him immense benefits was undoubtedly preferable to me, his biological daughter, who might one day inadvertently bring about his downfall. No. It dawned on me that I had likely never held any significance in his eyes, otherwise. Why would he have been so consumed by work that he never once cared for me personally after my birth? Everything was predestined. How ironic that I had naively believed that if I could instigate doubts about Jiang Li's inner voice, they would revert to being concerned relatives, unaware that he was either bewitched or willingly complicit. If that were the case, then let them seal their fates. No one shall touch what belongs to me. Not even Yun Baogua. Since they reveled in using inner voices to create chaos, how could I let such a splendid opportunity slip by? My family operates a family business. In my previous life, the heroine's smooth ascent to success and eventual influence within the company was linked to my father's brother, Yun Baohua. Calculating the time. My uncle was due to make an appearance. Soon, it would be my father's birthday, and on that day, my uncle would come to discuss inviting guests. In my past life, my uncle brought me gifts when he visited, but after meeting with my father and Jiang Li, he had always treated me coldly, ultimately leading to a divorce with my aunt. This time, the scenario unfolded similarly. My uncle arrived bearing gifts, while my father took Jiang Li with him to the study for discussions. The difference this time was that I concealed myself in the adjacent room to eavesdrop. The soundproofing was excellent, yet Jiang Li's inner voice was only limited by distance, not by spatial barriers. I had tested this. As long as I was within a 5-meter radius, I could clearly hear her thoughts. Shortly after Jiang Li entered the room, her internal monologue began to resonate. Yun Baohua? Isn't he the one who, in the original work, was betrayed by his wife and subsequently framed by Yun-Ting-An, ending up with nothing? Oh dear. This uncle's head is nearly bald. Your wife has been sleeping with your assistant for years, and you haven't noticed a thing? TSK. Well. I seem to be everywhere. Where did this original narrative spring from? I am not aiding the uncle who has given me gifts since childhood, but rather assisting the unfaithful aunt? Does no one find this glaringly obvious? I have exchanged hardly a few words with that aunt, and she has never liked me. Have I lost my mind? Why would I help her? Soon after, my uncle stormed out in a fit of rage. I quietly took out my miniature camera and captured his furious visage before retreating to my own room. Since you all believe I would assist the aunt, I must act accordingly to uphold my character. That day, my uncle indeed returned to confront her. I recalled that in my previous life. Their divorce proceedings dragged on for quite some time, ultimately resulting in my aunt receiving a portion of the assets before they could finalize their separation. This indicated that my aunt was indeed not someone to be trifled with. This time, my uncle was destined to hit a brick wall. I quickly dialed my aunt's number. Aunt, someone told uncle that you were having an affair with his assistant, and he just stormed out of my house in a rage. That evening, my aunt arrived at our door with my uncle, who bore a bruised face. At that moment, Jiang Li was in the living room doing her homework, while my father sat nearby watching the news. When the doorbell rang, my father instructed Jiang Li to answer it, and she skipped happily to the door, her face adorned with a charming smile. However, upon opening the door, a resounding slap rang out, striking her across the face. You little wench. Are you the one spreading rumors about me? Jiang Li was knocked to the ground, her cheek instantly reddening. She trembled as she covered her face, slowly lifting her head, tears welling in her eyes. I didn't say anything. My father helped Jiang Li to her feet, shielding her behind him. Qi Rong. What are you doing? My aunt, gripping my uncle's ear with one hand, pointed at my father with the other. Is this your illegitimate daughter? Why are you protecting her so? My father's face darkened, and, maintaining a semblance of decorum, he refrained from confronting my aunt directly, instead directing his ire at my uncle. Yun Baohua, what kind of man are you, being controlled by a woman? My aunt scoffed derisively. What nonsense are you spouting? Do you think everyone is like your sister-in-law, who takes abuse without retaliating? What kind of man is Yun Baohua? Aren't you two brothers the same? You both climb up by stepping on women, and you're just better at pretending. Don't think that just because your sister-in-law is dead, no one remembers your sordid past. I spit on you. Spreading rumors about me, do you wish to die? Jiang Li cowered behind my father, trembling. While her inner voice couldn't help but add a jab, no wonder she can get along with the main antagonist. She truly is no saint. I'm doomed. My uncle wouldn't push me out to take the blame, would he? Wah, I really didn't say anything. No, my uncle definitely wouldn't do that. He's such a good person. I must trust him. The art of manipulation is truly in your grasp. After all, Jiang Lily has genuinely helped my father earn money. I heard that in this round of gold futures trading, my father made at least 10 small targets. How could such a trivial matter make him lose trust in Jiang Lily? It's simply inconceivable. Ultimately, under my father's protection, my aunt could do nothing to her. She merely berated my father before storming out. In the end, she didn't even utter my name. My aunt proved to be quite reliable. Moreover, she bestowed upon me a significant revelation. Yubao Kingdom, how did my mother actually die? At the tender age of 5, my mother fell ill and passed away. A memory etched in my mind. Subsequently, I lived with my grandparents, who indulged me, fostering my unruly nature. It wasn't until I was in the 3rd grade that my father brought me to live with him. I had always believed my mother's death was merely an accident, never suspecting otherwise. However, after that day, I returned to my maternal grandparents' home, only to discover that everything was not as it seemed. My grandparents would not divulge the truth. It was during my mother's confinement after giving birth to me that she discovered my father's infidelity. He was keeping a mistress. My mother, stricken with rage and suffering from postpartum depression, fell ill, leading to lasting health issues. Although my father claimed to have severed ties with the woman, he remained indifferent to my mother, citing work as an excuse. By then, his business was thriving, and he no longer needed her. He would have preferred her demise to seize her shares. Moreover, my maternal grandparents revealed another piece of information. Before her death, my mother drafted a will, stipulating that all her 30 shares were to be inherited solely by me after her passing, with explicit instructions that no one else could inherit them. She bequeathed her real estate and vehicles to my brother. This will was known to everyone in our family except for me, and it had been notarized. However, the will has yet to be located, leaving me without an inheritance to this day. Over the years, every time I mentioned visiting my maternal grandparents, my father always accompanied me. I initially thought it was out of concern for me, but now it seems he was more worried that I might discover the existence of that will. No wonder. I recall my father questioning me more than once after bringing me back, asking if my mother had given me anything special. It appears he had been searching for that will during the years I stayed with my grandmother, and upon finding nothing, he brought me back. On my father's birthday, I returned home. No one knew I had spent the past few days at my grandparents' house. His heart and mind were solely occupied with Jiang Lily. He hardly noticed whether I was home. That day, I unexpectedly encountered Shi Jiayu, who looked considerably worn. The moment I saw her and my brother together, a sudden jolt of apprehension coursed through me, as if sensing something amiss. Thus, I took the initiative to pull Shi Jiayu aside for a conversation. Indeed, my concerns proved to be well-founded. My father willingly allowed himself to be manipulated by Jiang Lily for the sake of profit. But what of my brother? Is it truly because he suspects Shi Jiayu of infidelity that he seeks to dissolve their marriage? It is evident that this is not the case. Nan, have you noticed anything lately? Shi Jiayu seemed hesitant to speak, but with my encouragement, she quietly inquired, "Has there been another woman around your brother?" I maintained a facade of calmness, asking, "What makes you say that?" "I feel like your brother has changed completely. I can't quite put my finger on it, but he no longer seems as devoted to me as before. I even doubt whether he truly loves me." "Aside from your intuition," I probed, "has anything specific happened that made you feel he is acting strangely?" Shi Jiayu recounted, "Remember that day when we ran into my old classmate while shopping? I mentioned to you how he pursued me back in school, but I wasn't interested, and you advised me to steer clear of him. One day, I caught your brother looking at my phone. When I approached, I saw a message from that classmate inviting me to a reunion. Knowing your brother's temperament, I expected him to be angry, but he showed no reaction. When I said I wouldn't attend, he even encouraged me to go. Eventually, when I firmly declined, he became upset and left the meal unfinished. It appears he has fully embraced Jiang Lily's words, believing that Shi Jiayu would betray him. However, her next statement altered my perspective. Just the other day, I visited your house to find him. I wanted to hold his hand and ask him to accompany me shopping. But he reacted strongly and pushed me away. Shi Jiayu was visibly stunned. Why would he react that way at home? I looked incredulously in my brother's direction. Were there others at home that day? She shook her head. No, it was just you and me. I was doing my homework when I took his hand. Just then, I looked up to see my brother gently wiping food residue from Jiang Jiayu's face. So it wasn't Jiang Lily's influence, but rather that he is simply a debauched scoundrel. It is only natural, faced with the stunningly beautiful Jiang Lily, who possesses the gift of foresight, with her doe-like eyes glistening as she gazes at him. Showering him with admiration and adoration, how could he remain unaffected? He is no different from my father. Why must our family be filled with unsavory characters while I alone am the so-called villain in Jiang Lily's narrative? You all wish to trample over me to elevate yourselves. Let your grand dreams of spring and autumn come to naught. I ceased to advise Shi Jiayu any further. The only assistance I could offer was to help her avoid the metaphorical sword Jiang Lily spoke of, but I had no control over my brother's affections. Her subsequent choices would be hers alone. I merely hinted at my brother's unusual demeanor towards Jiang Lily. Before long, Shi Jiayu took the initiative to inform me that she planned to break off her engagement with my brother. I clarified the time of their visit and made preparations in advance. On the day of the engagement dissolution, Shi Jiayu arrived with her parents. According to custom, returning gifts must accompany the dissolution of engagement. Despite their displeasure towards both my brother and Jiang Lily, Shi Jiayu's parents were relatively diplomatic with my father, merely stating that their personalities were incompatible. Just as the discussions reached a near conclusion, Jiang Lily's troublesome relative arrived, an invitation I had orchestrated. I pondered why Jiang Lily, fully aware of my role as the antagonist, would still choose to leave with my father. A quick investigation revealed that I was merely a brainless villain in a third-rate romance novel, while her relatives were seasoned conflict experts straight out of a prime-time drama. Moreover, my father, a man driven solely by profit, would not willingly bring such trouble home. It was undoubtedly due to the substantial fortune left to Jiang Lily by her parents. Following the unfortunate demise of Uncle Jiang, her relatives had been eagerly vying for a share of the inheritance. Without my father's protection, Jiang Lily would have been devoured whole by that pack of relatives. In my past life, they did not appear until I was confined to a mental institution. I remain uncertain whether it was due to my father's interference or if they arrived only after my departure. Upon discovering the inside information I had deliberately leaked about Jiang Lily being adopted by the Jiang family, they merely aimed to foster her relationship with Yun Yufeng to seize the entirety of the Jiang family's wealth. Witnessing Yun Yufeng's breakup with his fiancée, how could they possibly remain skeptical? Not only did they believe it, but even Uncle Shi and Auntie Shi were convinced. In an instant, our household became quite the spectacle. Ultimately, it was the police who arrived to successfully rescue my father and the others. My father, who has always prioritized etiquette, was left in a most disheveled state. Meanwhile, Jiang Lily clearly did not anticipate such a scene. Her delicate form, akin to ice and jade, could hardly withstand the torment from this group. Bruised and battered, she wept more earnestly than when Annie struck her that day. This farcical episode culminated with my father swearing before the Jiang family that he had absolutely no ulterior motives in adopting Jiang Lily, and that Yun Yufeng could never harbor any romantic feelings for her, temporarily settling the matter. Yet, this was far from sufficient. During the 10 years spent in the psychiatric hospital, I came to believe that this was not merely the conclusion of my previous life. Should I allow Jiang Lily to continue residing in my home in this life, then when my father eventually amassed his fortune through her, my fate would undoubtedly mirror that of my past. Therefore, I must emerge victorious. Under my instigation, the Jiang family embarked on a protracted battle for inheritance lasting several months, ultimately resulting in the court reallocating Uncle Zhang's estate according to inheritance laws. Every dog bearing the Jiang surname was able to claim a share. Jiang Lily's assets were significantly diminished. Apart from her appearance, what she could offer my brother paled in comparison to Shi Jiayu. As for the ability to foresee the future, everything remained under my father's control, leaving her to scavenge whatever was left. Without the Shi family's support, his position within the conglomerate had become far less secure than before. In my previous life, after dissolving his engagement with Shi Jiayu, he had likely been fixated on Jiang Lily's wealth, which allowed him to remain unperturbed as he plotted meticulously. This time, however, I had stripped away a significant portion of his cards, rendering him noticeably flustered. He began to inquire, both overtly and covertly, whether my mother had left me anything of significance. I truly wished to inform him that once he believed he had discovered that special something, the conglomerate would no longer have a place for him. I had yet to locate my mother's will, thus I remained inactive, spending my days gathering hints from the protagonist while diligently preparing for the impending college entrance examination. Throughout these 3 years, aside from contending with the protagonist, I had never once slacked in my studies. After all, having faced death once, nothing could compare to the torment I endured during those 10 years as a supposed lunatic. I cherished this second chance. Zhang Yan, who initially regarded me with trepidation, had gradually lowered his guard. I was astonished to discover that the one who could escape the confines of the plot was none other than an unrelated outsider. Indeed, those who excelled to become the top of their class possessed remarkable intellect. On the day of my 18th birthday, which coincided with the last holiday before the college entrance examination, I chose to return to my grandmother's house. The Yun family had long ceased to provide me with refuge. Yun Yufeng, true to the role Jiang Lily dubbed him as the male lead, had bided his time within the conglomerate after severing ties with the Shi family. Utilizing the protagonist's insights and his own capabilities, he successfully secured several major projects and firmly established himself. Simultaneously, his gaze toward Jiang Lily grew ever more fervent. After all, who would not be enamored with a prophet capable of bestowing wealth and status? Their thoughts were entirely consumed by Jiang Lily, naturally causing them to forget my birthday, just as it had transpired in my previous life. The reason I lost my sanity and inexplicably lashed out at Jiang Lily that day was precisely because I had harbored high hopes that my father and brother would remember me. Yet, not one of them acknowledged my birthday. Instead, they took Jiang Lily out to offer incense and pray for her success in the upcoming examination, leaving me behind. Perhaps in their eyes, I was merely a poor student, unworthy even of participating in the college entrance examination. Throughout these 3 years, I had consistently performed steadily in every examination, placing consistently near the bottom of my class to avoid arousing suspicion. Aside from Zhang Yan, no one was privy to my secret. When Zhang Yan inquired, I simply replied, "Those who are not of my kin will inevitably harbor different intentions." Zhang Yan is a genius. With merely a hint from me, he comprehended my meaning, diligently guiding me while also playing along, often reproaching me for my perceived foolishness. As for Jiang Lily, she seemed overly confident in her abilities, for she had yet to suspect me, her thoughts solely consumed by Yun Yufeng. After all, she was the protagonist endowed with a golden finger. Upon arriving at my grandmother's house, she prepared a feast for me. They accompanied me in celebrating a joyful birthday. Even though they were aware of my academic struggles, they still urged me not to be anxious during the examination, to avoid blank submissions, and to answer the questions diligently. During the meal, I received a call from an unfamiliar number, claiming to have a gift for me, entrusted by my mother during her lifetime. I had a foreboding sense that this might be the will. However, upon arrival, I discovered that in addition to the will, there was an entire set of priceless jewelry. Yun Ting'an, I am a friend of your mother's. She entrusted me to personally deliver this coming-of-age gift to you, saying it was prepared in advance as your dowry. I was already in tears. It turned out that my mother's love had never left me. In order for this precious gift to reach my hands and realize its value, my mother had meticulously planned everything. Had it not been for Jiang Lily's interference, I would have thrived under my mother's protection, ultimately becoming a responsible adult. I recalled that on this very day in my previous life, they had gone to the temple to pray for blessings, only to return home early. Looking back, I had not known of the will's existence in my past life. Nor had I visited my grandmother's house. Uncle Gu must have come looking for me at home, but at that time, jealousy had clouded my judgment, nearly driving me to madness as I plotted revenge against Jiang Lily. Upon arriving home and finding me absent, he encountered my father and the others. Alternatively, during the prayer, Jiang Lily may have revealed something to them, which prevented the will from reaching me. This implies that even had I refrained from attacking Jiang Lily, my brother would likely have sought to eliminate me. After all, as siblings, why would my mother leave all the significant shares to me alone? However, Now everything was set to change. Unless unforeseen circumstances arose, Jiang Lili should currently be taken away by the personnel from the National Security Bureau. Regardless of whether the will appeared tonight, I had resolved to take action against Jiang Lili. Since you claim to only wish to focus on your studies, how could I possibly allow you to participate in the college entrance examination? After all, I am the notorious villain in your narrative. For the past 3 years, I had been equipped with a miniature camera, recording every time Jiang Lili expressed her innermost thoughts, capturing the reactions of everyone present. Each utterance of hers had been meticulously documented along with its corresponding timeline. Such records filled an entire volume. Naturally, my testimony alone could not serve as evidence. But with Zhang Yan's involvement, it would hold weight. That evening, Zhang Yan and I were summoned, accompanied by Yun Baogua and Yun Yufeng. However, the latter two were unaware of the unfolding events. The personnel from the National Security Bureau, under the guise of law enforcement, claimed that Jiang Lili was connected to a murder case and needed to be taken in for investigation. Considering her status as a minor, they allowed the two to accompany her. Little did they know, Zhang Yan and I were in the adjacent interrogation room, separated by a partition. Staff members monitored both Zhang Yan and me. With Yun Baogua and Yun Yufeng present, Jiang Lili's thoughts would undoubtedly flow freely during the questioning. She both answered the interrogators and simultaneously relayed messages to the two in her mind. Before both Zhang Yan and I lay a pen and a sheet of paper, ready to transcribe our innermost thoughts as they surfaced. Half an hour later, the staff departed with our recorded expressions. Undoubtedly, the responses were nearly identical, as if copied and pasted. Within Jiang Lili's inner musings, there were even critiques aimed at the questions posed by the National Security Bureau personnel, insights that neither Zhang Yan nor I could have anticipated. Thus, this documentation served as irrefutable evidence of Jiang Lili's extraordinary abilities. When Jiang Lili was handcuffed and taken away, Yun Baogua and Yun Yufeng were utterly bewildered, even disregarding the circumstances to obstruct the officials in their duties. As Zhang Yan and I exited, we chanced upon Jiang Lili, her eyes glistening with tears, pleading for their assistance. Simultaneously, she could no longer restrain her thoughts, hysterically exclaiming, "This is impossible. I am traversing dimensions. I am the protagonist of this world. System, come forth. Why is this happening? How can they be agents of the National Security Bureau?" I regarded their farcical display with cold detachment. And when Jiang Lili finally noticed me, I interjected, "Father, brother, cease your charade. You can hear her thoughts as well, cannot you? You have known all along that she is not the true Jiang Lili. Why continue this performance?" I continued. "Over the years, you have profited handsomely from her." Jiang Lili, now fully grasping the situation, looked at me in sheer terror. "This cannot be. How can you hear me?" Seeing the situation had spiraled beyond his control, Yun Baogua stubbornly retorted, "I have no idea what you are talking about." Yun Yufeng also caught on. "I do not comprehend your meaning." Suddenly, a beautiful silver bracelet clamped around their wrists. "Gentlemen, you are suspected of harboring interdimensional terrorists for profit. Please accompany me for further inquiry." Did they truly believe that I found amusement in playing along for 3 years? That record, along with their reactions today, had long betrayed them. I regarded the pair with icy disdain, choosing to remain silent. After Yun Baogua and Yun Yufeng were taken for interrogation, I retrieved that will and inherited 30 of the conglomerate's shares. With my backing and my uncle's existing 5, we emerged as the majority shareholders of the group. My uncle successfully assumed control of the Yun Corporation. The company, originally financed by my mother, had now returned to our family's hands, a rightful restoration. Soon, the verdict was delivered. Due to the case's concealed truths, it was not made public, known only to Zhang Yan and myself. Yun Baogua and Yun Yufeng were convicted of aiding and abetting espionage and sentenced to prison. As for Jiang Lili, the details surrounding her fate were rather vague. I surmised she was likely taken for experimental research. Meanwhile, I gained admission to a commendable university, embarking on a collegiate experience I had never enjoyed in my past life. At long last, everything had returned to its rightful course. The end of the narrative. Thank you for listening. Until we meet again in the next story.